Hello. So this is going to be the second video assignment for this weekend. So basically, we are told to do three things, and that is describing or demonstrating the three exercises of a push-up, sit-up, and squat. And basically, our main purpose is just to explain exactly the joint movements and especially the primary movers, and more importantly, the the eccentric and concentric of just understanding how the different the joint movements do like seeing if there's any joint movements and more importantly the stabilizers in these exercises. So let's begin with the push-up. So when it comes to the push-up, it's basically the eccentric phase as demonstrated would be going down. So going down, when it comes to the push-up, the joint movements are going to be your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, and scapula, which is basically three of them are going to be controlled, which is going to be your shoulder joint, and then your elbow especially, and then including your retraction, excuse me. Those three are going to be controlled, but with the wrist, they're going to be, as you saw, slightly flexed. You can see my left wrist a little bit better, but it's slightly flexed to make sure that you stabilize and you're not moving anywhere because I was going down. Notice that my wrists are not moving. So when it comes to the primary movers, the shoulder joint with the anterior deltoid acting essentially, and then when it comes to the triceps, excuse me, the elbow, the triceps are acting eccentrically as well. So as it comes to the stabilizers, the core is acting as the abdominals and obliques for stabilization, with the core being tightened as you go down to make sure that you're not rocking back and forth. For the wrist, as I said before, it's flexing. It's making sure that you're stabilized as you're going down. Now, when it comes to going up, the joint movements are the same as follows. That's basically when it comes to the shoulder. It's going to be flexion. It's going to be a little bit changed. So, excuse me. The shoulder is going to be with flexion. The elbow is having extension in it. Is the wrist. The wrist is slightly extended / is stabilizing even more because you're pushing up. So you're acting as this is not. You're acting as this is how you're going to get up, and you're not using your wrist to do anything besides holding you steady while you go down and back up. And then, of course, the scapula, it's a protraction of the joint movement. Now, when it comes to the primary moves, your shoulder joints and also your pectoral and anterior deltoids, and including your elbow or the triceps, are going to be your main source of power getting back up. So you're going against gravity. So as I say, when it comes to a push-up, when you're going down, notice that usually the only way to get back up is to push up with your triceps and your deltoids. So it helps you very well, especially knowing how much strength you have in your triceps, of much power you put in your anterior deltoids. You figure out how much power you can get up, and depending on how many push-ups you can do in the end. Now, when it comes to the stabilizers, the core is the main factor, honestly, because the core is making you not wobble back and forth, but also it is actually going to make sure that it's there for stabilization purposes, especially with the wrist being flexed, with just having the capability of stabilizing your body as well, as I just mentioned before. But that is the push-up. Now, for the sit-up, it's a little bit different. We're not using too much of our arms. We're not using too much of our legs. Our main purpose is our core. So when it comes to a regular sit-up, the proper technique of a sit-up is starting from lying down. So, for instance, there's many different concepts with the sit-up. But for me, I like doing straight leg sit-ups because it actually activates more of your core. And more importantly, it activates all the stabilizers within your core as well. So when it comes to your spine and your hips, those are your joint movements that are going to be flexed throughout the sit-up position when you're rising up, of course. So for instance, this is what I mean by straight sit up. I'm not really moving my I'm not really moving my knees. Like basically, they are all straight as they are right now. So I'm going down, and I'm going back up, and all I'm using is the force of my abs to get me up, and more importantly, my hips to keep me stable as I'm going up as well. So the primary movers of these is going to be your abdominals, your obliques, and your external obliques. And then, of course, you have your hips, which is basically the reason why you are actually going to keep the stabilization, knowing that my hips are steady. And if I was moving my hips like that, that'd be an alternative, different exercise class. My hips are keeping my whole body in check to stabilize everything. But when it comes to your spine, it does have a huge fact of a stabilized factor in this concept of a sit-up as going up to down, but up, it's a stabilizer, truly stabilizer. And then for our neck, as you know, when it comes to many sit-ups positions, a lot of people like to keep your neck straight or keep your neck, extended. However, if your neck flexion it's only your neck flex if you have your hands behind your head. So kind of like this. Notice that my head's tilted compared to me being in that straight sit-up, straight leg sit-up, excuse me. So if I was doing a regular sit-up with my knees, and I do my this, that's basically your normal sit-up position, as a lot of people should know, and hence why your neck would be flexed because of your hands behind your head. Now, when it comes to going down, that's kind of like the opposite role. So we're talking about our spine and our hips being extended, which are our joint movements. So it's a great important way to actually make sure that you understand that these are eccentrically part of the going down process of your sit-up. So for instance, as I mentioned, basically your abdominals, your obliques, and your external obliques are acting eccentrically, especially with the hips as well. Even your femur, I'm trying to remember. The rectus femoris is another source where it's going to make sure that it's eccentrically making sure it's keeping your body as mobile as possible and on the way up as well as on the way down. Now, when it comes to stabilizers, I mean, the thing is that your hips, like I mentioned, are essential. However, your spine, and usually when it comes to your neck part, as I mentioned, they're acting essentially if the hands are behind the head. So no matter what, the spine is basically your main stabilizer. That's what's keeping your body straight. That's what's keeping you from not going in different positions. But with the different kind of sit-up, it depends on how you take it. So for example, when it comes to your neck sit-up, as I'm mentioning, you're going up because you're putting your hands behind your head, causing your neck to flash. Now, if I didn't have my hands and I did like a straight leg sit up, notice that I haven't even barely even moved my neck. That's because I'm using a straight leg sit up. So my whole core power is coming from almost what it feels like my top abdominal muscles, but in reality, it's also my middle too. It's all around kind of core strength and also lower ab workout, which is a really nice, unique way of how you can do the sit-ups and understanding the different type of flexion and extensions with your neck, or with understanding exactly how your body can be going down when it comes to your hip and spine being controlled on the way down, such as going back up. But when it comes to the last and final one, the squat is a lot of interesting steps. So when it comes to your concentric phase of the squat with the joint movements, so basically you're working your knee, your ankle, and your hip. And when it comes to your ankle, it's going to be flexion, and then with your knee and hip, it's going to be extension. So, as you notice, as in a standing position as a squat, you can either do basically, well, I usually like to do it is this way to keep me kind of understanding that I can pretend there's like a barbell in front of me and I can actually do that for like a recuration of it to kind of use my body weight. But remember when it comes to the being up as a hip, I mean, sorry, hop, if you're standing straight up with a squat, it means that your legs, such as your knee and then also your hip, are straight. They haven't moved really as a standing up straight position. I have not flexed my knees. I haven't flexed my hips at all. They are still standing straight. Now, when it comes to primary movers, you have your ankle, your knee, and your hip, as I mentioned. So basically, your soles of your ankles, including your quadriceps, and also your gluteus maximus for your hips, such as your hamstrings as well, are going to be your main factors of actually being successful in this squat workout. And when it comes to the stabilizers, obviously your hips are causing, your gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, adductors are your prime stabilizers, and as well with your core, knowing the fact that, as our professor said in class, a front squat, I believe it's the front squat, is one of the best core workouts because it's making sure that you're stabilizing your core and using the just tightening your core, making it easy for you to come down easier, but also working your core and abdominal muscles basically to its fullest capability. Now, your ankles are going to be the stabilizer as well because you're putting your majority of your weight on your feet. You're keeping your feet flat, but however, as you're going down, which we're about to reach that part going down, which is our next step, your feet are going to be flexing a little bit. I know that was not the best squat, but basically how I like to do it. As you can see, my ankle has slightly kind of turned from this to almost like a 45-degree angle. So obviously, meaning flexion in the ankle is happening. Now, when it comes to going down, the eccentric phase is basically your joint movements are going to be, of course, again, your ankle, your knee, and also your hips. So all three of them are going to be controlled on the going down because you're staying stable as much as possible. If you're doing any barbell back squats or you're doing any kind of body weight squats, it's important to understand your position and it's important to understand your control of these different materials. Now, when it comes to your primary movers, your quadriceps, your gluteus maximus, your hamstrings, and the soleus are acting as eccentrically. So they are all like basically harmonized when coming down with this work with the squat. So as when it comes to the squat, knowing that my stabilizers are going to be my hips, and they're going to be my core, which is a stabilizer as well, and then of course my ankles. So as I mentioned before, when I'm going down, I'm going to have to make sure my knees, when it comes to the squat, my proper technique is always to keep my knees behind my toes, kind of making sure I'm not really leaning forward because this could easily damage my hamstrings, but also my knees as well, but also cause damage to my hip and more importantly, my back. But when it comes to the squat, I want to look at my toes, making sure that if I can still bend and I see my toes, then I'm doing it right. So when I'm going down, I'm making sure my knees are behind my toes, still going down, my back is straight, kind of almost like the proper way of actually like pretending is like you're about to sit in a chair because you're about to put your butt in the chair and that's normally the position. However, you're not going in the chair, you're just bending down, but you're still pretending you're getting in that chair. However, you're keeping the back straight, you're keeping the knees flexed, same with the ankles. As you can see, I'm doing a stagger squat now, but you're seeing that ankle right there being flexed. However, notice that I'm not moving really anything besides flexing my knees, flexing my hips, and flexing my ankles because that's my stabilizers. If I was moving like this, that would be like an alternating jump stagger squat. But I'm just basically doing this, not moving, working on my stability, but working on the gluteus maximus, my hamstrings, more importantly, to make sure that I am properly doing this technique properly. So, basically, these three exercises have been explained the best of my ability. Um, it's important to understand how and understand how these exercises work, but more importantly, understanding the different kind of muscles that they affect. Um, Sometimes there are different exercises slash modifications within the core, within the squats, and with push-ups. It's important to understand that there's going to be different times where these exercises are done normally and sometimes are done differently, which causes different effects to whatever um, muscle group you have. So when it comes to different type of squats, you can be using more of your quads or your hamstrings, but you have to identify them, which is what I tried to do today, which I hope I did. And I know that I am being a little bit of a stuttery guy, but I mean, hey, I'm not an expert, but I am getting there to be an expert with this. But I hope I explained everything to the best of my ability, and I appreciate the time, and see you later.